Hello again and welcome back. The last time we talked, if you haven't watched it, you need to go back. We discussed analyzing sentences with direct objects and some without direct objects. But what I want to do with you today is I want to look at diagramming some sentences with direct objects. The difference in analyzing and diagramming is that the diagram puts it in a structural form for those of you who see things in pictures and see things in graphics and in diagrams. I'm one of those who likes to see things graphically or in some sort of scientific form. So if you want to learn to do this, this is much easier for those of you who think that way. The baseline is going to be this line going all the way across, and the baseline is always going to be there. This line that's going perpendicular is separating your complete subject from your complete predicate. This line will always be there. The other lines are optional. The direct object line will not always be there, but it stops flush against this line and it's perpendicular to the baseline. These other lines are optional, but just in case you want to know how an adjective that's describing your subject looks is going to be under here. Notice I put an adjective under here, not an adverb, because subjects can only be nouns or verbs, and then adjectives can only describe nouns or verbs. You could have an adverb describing the adjective, but in this case we're just putting this simple adjective under the subject. I also put a prepositional phrase in the form of a slanted line where the preposition goes, and this line that's supposed to be parallel to your baseline where your object goes. Then your adverb can describe or modify your transitive verb, so that's why the adverb is under your transitive verb. I didn't put anything under the direct object, but you can have words that describe your direct object, and those would have to be as well adjectives, because direct objects can only be nouns or pronouns, and that would be under your direct object. So let's go to the board and see what we would do with some sentences that's going to help us analyze and diagram these sentences. Notice that we're analyzing before we start to diagram. You need to analyze them first because sometimes you may get confused and put things in the wrong place. So let's analyze them first. And the first thing that we talked about doing was looking for any conjunctions. I don't see any conjunctions in that first sentence. So we can move on to the second step to analyzing a sentence, which is finding your prepositional phrases. Of the gentleman is a prepositional phrase. We put that in parentheses. And that's the only prepositional phrase. Then we're going to look for verbs and put 2 lines under the word answered because that's showing action. And then we ask ourselves who answered or what answered. And we put 1 line under some because that's telling you who answered. Now to make sure this is a transitive verb, to make sure that it has a direct object, we have to ask ourselves whom or what answered. And some answered questions. The question is going to be your direct object because it's answering the question after your action verb, who or what answered. Then the next thing you're going to do is look for any adjectives or adverbs that are describing or modifying your nouns or your other things in the sentence. Gentleman is your first noun, and the is always going to be an adjective. This one case describing the gentleman. The next one is your noun, questions, and this adjective is describing questions. So what are we going to do with well? Well is actually telling you how they answered the questions. So how is going to be, is going to be an adverb answering how the gentleman answered the questions. So when I diagram this, remember that anything that's describing something or modifying something is going to go under the thing it's describing or modifying. Everything above the baseline is basic sentence pattern, subject, verb, direct object, subject, verb, linking verb, predicate, nominative, subject, linking verb, predicate, adjective, subject, verb. But anything under the baseline is going to be those words that are describing. We also have to determine what to do with of the gentleman. Of the gentleman is a prepositional phrase where we put our preposition here and our object preposition over here. But all of this phrase is telling you which gentleman, so this is going to have to be an adjective phrase. I would advise you to look at the video on adjective and adverb phrases when they're used as prepositions and try to figure out what it is if you're not sure. But in this sentence, of the gentleman is answering a question about some, which is which gentleman. So when we diagram this, we have to have our baseline. You always have one of those. You always have your perpendicular line that goes all the way through, which forms your 4 angles. And then sum is your subject, so it goes here on the left of that line. Since the gentleman is describing sum, telling you which gentleman, you need to put of on the diagonal line under sum. And then gentleman should go parallel to your baseline where you put gentleman. Since the was describing gentleman, it goes under there. Everything on this side should now be your complete subject. On the right side, you have to put your verb. Answered. And then they answered whom or what. Remember to stop your line right here. Do not go straight through because it looks like you have a bunch of different, it's confusing because you only have complete subject, complete predicate. And going through here would make it confusing. So stop it right here and then put your direct object here. Now which words are we missing? We've got some of the gentlemen, we've got answered questions. Now we need to put the under questions. And then well, we said, was modifying answered, so well goes under here. That's how you analyze and diagram the first sentence. The second sentence, we start by looking for conjunctions. I don't see any conjunctions, but we do have prepositional phrases, so we put those in parentheses. And then we look for our verbs. We've got likes. Who likes? Jethro. Jethro likes whom or what? He likes chocolate. So chocolate is my direct object. I don't know why he likes chocolate with his cereal, but that's your direct object. So Jethro likes whom or what? Chocolate with his cereal. So let's put our line here. And we'll put Jethro here because Jethro is my subject. And then we put likes right here because likes is my verb. And then we've got chocolate is your direct object. So it goes right here. Now what do we do with his cereal? Remember up here we talked about this prepositional phrase was modifying some, so it went under here. In this case, it's telling you how he likes his cereal. He likes his cereal with chocolate. So we put it over here under likes. So he likes it with cereal. So we got with on that line, cereal on that line, and then his is telling you whose cereal. So you would have an adjective here. Jethro likes chocolate with his cereal. Strange kid, that Jethro. All right, the next sentence, you notice it's inverted. So you have a helping verb beginning your sentence. You notice that in the English language, we usually ask questions about putting our helping verb in front. So don't leave out your helping verb when you start. But we're still going to analyze it the same way. The first thing you're going to look for is some sort of conjunction. I don't see any conjunctions. So now let's look for prepositional phrases. We've got for neatness. That's all of our prepositional phrases. Now we're going to look for our verbs. Giving is my main verb, but remember that we have the helping verb in the front. So we've got are giving. Now ask yourself a question, who, when you say are giving, and that's actually you. Then you have to flip that around in your brain and say you are giving whom or what? You're giving points. You have to actually invert it in your mind, or you could rewrite it if you like. If you have extra time, you could do that. And then you're left with your one-word adjectives, which is extra, describing points. And then what are we going to do with for neatness? In this case, for neatness is telling you which kind of points. Points for neatness. And this is your preposition, and this is your object of the preposition. So when you diagram this one, instead of putting your prepositional phrase under your verb because it was modifying your verb, this one's actually going to be an adjective phrase, and you need to look that up if you're not sure what an adjective phrase is with prepositional phrases. So you're going to have your baseline, Have your perpendicular line that goes through the baseline and forms these 4 triangles. And then you put your subject, which is you, are and giving go on this side because they're both part of your entire verb phrase. And then you're left with your direct object, which is points. Remember that we had extra was describing points. And then you had for neatness, which was saying what kind of points. Points for neatness, which I would not get today because I'm not being very neat. So do we have every word in here? You got are, you, giving, extra points for neatness. So every word is there. And remember that when you have your complete subject on this side, complete predicate on this side, everything on this side has to do with your subject, everything on this side has to do with your predicate. Thank you, and until next time.